Pokemon GO has quickly become a worldwide phenomenon and has done several things, including reintroducing the concept of Pokemon to both new and old fans, and in the process has also gotten new people interested in Pokemon in general. But it's not perfect. There are flaws that need addressing, and there are also things that are done really well by the game that I also feel needs addressing. Let's take a look at 3 of the good, 3 of the bad, and then make a final decision on the game's quality. So, without further ado, this is the good and bad of Pokemon GO. The first and by far most impressive is how many people have now been introduced to Pokemon, or even better, have hopefully gotten into Pokemon. And that's not just me pulling random statistics out of thin air. If you look at the search trends for the word Pokemon over the last 12 years, it was pretty much at a standstill. Or in other words, there weren't any real peaks. That is until July of this year, where with the release of Pokemon GO, it skyrocketed. People who have never heard of Pokemon before are getting into it. Or even better, people who don't really play video games in general are getting into it. I mean, be honest, you can't go onto any social media without finding some trace of it, and from my viewpoint, that's definitely not a bad thing. Before Pokemon GO's release, it was a dwindling franchise. That's not to say it was failing or anything, but Pokemon has once again become a household name. To help my point, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the last 2 games to come out in the main Pokemon series, have, as of now, sold 12.24 million copies worldwide. Pokemon X and Y are similar, selling about 13 million units combined. That's certainly nothing to laugh at, but at its highest, Pokemon GO had an average of 26 million daily players. That's a lot of people chasing virtual monsters. And while it's true that the number of players has gone down slightly, it's still at an average of about 20 million players every day. Looks like people are getting interested again. Now, this seems kind of like a given, but Pokemon GO was made to make you go outside and appreciate the world around you. Whether or not you're more focused on the Pokemon you're catching than the pretty scenery is besides the point. Let's just all take a minute and appreciate that a lot of people are now getting exercise more than ever. And that makes me sound like I'm being a dick, but no, I'm being totally genuine. I've talked to a lot of people and they all say the same thing. Ever since Pokemon GO's release, they've been far more active. I know it's been true for me. I've spent more time walking around outside than I ever have in recent history. It's given me an excuse to go out and explore the world. It seems, to me at least, that Pokemon as a franchise has always been about connecting with new people. That even goes as far back as the original Red, Blue, and Yellow. You could connect via a link cable to other people's games and battle them and trade with them. Sure, at its core, the game was about you and your journey, but I feel as though connecting with others was always a priority. Not only did Nintendo want you to play Pokemon, they wanted you to play Pokemon with other people. As the games went on, it became easier and easier to connect and play with others. With the invention of Wi-Fi, this was streamlined, making it the easiest it had ever been. Now you can connect to people anywhere, even outside your country. But Pokemon, as a concept, seems to go hand in hand with mobile gaming. People already have their eyes glued to their phone screens, so making a game where the goal is to walk around and collect things, it's a miracle no one's thought of this kind of thing before. But there's another element to this. Because not only are people going outside and experiencing the world, but they're also meeting new people. They're interacting, talking about the game, talking about where the best places to play the game are. People are finally connecting in the way it seems like the original Pokemon was intended. And you know what? It's pretty damn awesome if you ask me. If you went back to, say, 3 months ago and asked the average person on the street what an augmented reality game was, they'd probably tell you that they didn't know, or they had heard of it, but they weren't exactly sure what it meant. Now, full disclosure, if you ask someone now, they'd probably just say that thing that Pokemon GO is, but that's still an improvement, no matter how slight. But not only have average people learned what this means, major tech companies now also know what it means. Well, more specifically, they know it can be extremely successful. Augmented reality, or AR, up to this point, was a risk no one was willing to take. When the whole industry is going crazy for virtual reality, AR just kinda seems like a step down. But thanks to Pokemon GO, they've seen that that's not the case. Well, in a reality sense, it certainly is a step down, but if we're talking purely by success, then AR suddenly has a great contender in their ring. Nintendo took a chance when they gave Niantic a grant to begin working on Pokemon GO. Niantic was a small startup company with only the map system under their belt. They took a chance, and by God, it really paid off. Not just for Nintendo, whose stock is now worth $12 billion more than it was, but for other companies as well. Square Enix has recently announced that they've begun production on a Final Fantasy AR game, and Google has recently teamed up with Lenovo to make an entire phone based on the concept of AR. This is all thanks to Pokemon GO, a first try from a previously rather unknown company. It's changed how companies are viewing the function of AR. They're taking risks, they're willing to try anything to get close to the profits that Pokemon is raking in. Valve, Gearbox, Activision, big names in the gaming industry are meeting to try and find out how to create a game that can reach Pokemon GO's success. Thanks to this little game about hunting down fake creatures, we're going to be seeing a lot more games just like this. Or hell, hopefully even better. If the creative minds of the industry come together, I'm absolutely sure that whatever game comes next that utilizes this technology will be an insane hit. I'm certainly excited for the future. I can't wait to see what's in store. Alright, now anyone who's played Pokemon GO for any semblance of time will be aware that its servers are garbage. Now I know that no game that's available in as many places as it is bound to have a good or stable launch, but my god, it was awful. Probably has something to do with the fact that every day it was being launched in a new country. It first launched in mid-July in a few countries, and then slowly it launched to the rest of the world. The CEO of Niantic once said in an interview that it was his dream to have Pokemon GO up and running in over 20 regions. That's pretty insane. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you have servers like Niantic's, yeah, it's a pretty bad idea. But in all fairness, not all of the server crashes have been their fault. Recently, a hacking group by the name of Poodle Corp have been attacking several large YouTube channels. And I do use the word attacking very loosely because they always gave the people back their channels, and even offered some security advice. This is relevant because this group has recently been threatening to take Pokemon GO down for an entire day. Luckily, they haven't had a successful attempt yet. It's all just been threats up to this point. But if a small hacker group with a public Twitter account believes they can take down the servers easily, it gets you wondering, how secure are the servers? And when will the next huge crash be? It's certainly something to work on. Now when you first hear this, it actually sounds like it belongs in the good section, because if you do happen to live in a huge city like New York, you're going to be having an extremely easy time. There are Pokestops and Pokemon aplenty in big spaces, so if this is so helpful to people who live in enormous areas, why would it be bad? Well, you're forgetting about the people who aren't fortunate enough to live in an enormous area. For the rest of us, it's been hard going. From my personal experience, you can spend upwards of 30 minutes just walking to find a Pokestop, and when you're low on Pokeballs, that's the last thing you need. It also seems almost necessary to use an incense or lure if you want to have hope of actually catching things. Play in a city, or hell, even in a town, and you are extremely ahead of the game. Disneyland, Old Sacramento, New York City, Santa Cruz, especially Central Park. The amount of Pokestops in these areas is just insane. I went into a city my first day of playing Pokemon GO, and I reached level 8. This isn't just because of the surplus Pokestops. I mean, it certainly isn't not because of the Pokestops, but it also has to do with the fact that in an area with a lot of Pokestops, that means a lot of people. And a lot of people means a lot of lures that are being laid down. You can't walk 5 feet without running into a Pokemon. It's ridiculous. I know I can't really blame the game for this. I mean, in a small country-style town, I can't imagine there would be many landmarks to set Pokestops at. But it is a little jarring to go from maybe encountering a Pokemon every 10 minutes if you're lucky, to encountering one every 10 seconds. And that's when you're unlucky.
Alright, so that over there, those two bears statues, that's the Pokestop. And there's no crosswalk, so I just kind of have to time this right or die, you know, one or the other. Right. Shit. Okay, alright, cool. Cars. Alright, so one side down, I gotta make it back over to you. So one side down. Alright. Right? No? Alright. Okay. Alright. Okay. There we go. Made it. That wasn't so hard. Wasn't so hard at all. What are you looking at? Ow.
This is a very personal issue, but where I live, the Pokestops and gyms are in incredibly hard to get places. Sometimes it seems like the only way you'd be able to get them is if you have access to a car, or if you already live close enough to one. And I know this ties into an earlier point about there not being that many landmarks to actually put Pokestops at, but it does get a little annoying after a while. I'd rather not endanger my life just to get a Gyarados. Actually, you know what, I think I would endanger my life for a Gyarados. That's pretty rare. Pokemon GO may have some issues that probably need ironing out, but the good far outweighs the bad. People are getting active, communities and rivalries alike are forming, new people are meeting each other, and even if it does have some bad, no game is perfect. And even the bad parts of it, they're still part of the experience. Even if you don't like Pokemon GO, or hell, even if you think it's stupid, I very strongly believe that everyone should at least try it. At least experience it. It's new, interesting technology that we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future. May as well get on the bandwagon before it takes off without you. Overall, Pokemon GO is an extremely fun and deeply rewarding experience. I've put literal hours into this game, and I can't see myself stopping anytime soon. As long as they keep adding Pokemon and tweaking the game to be better and more functional, I'll stick around. I'm very much looking forward to what Niantic has in stores for us.